What's up, Stephanie? What's going on? How y'all doing? How y'all doing? How y'all doing? How y'all doing? Gonna let the room fill up just a little bit. Our declaration is going to be just do what God said. That's it. Just do. Hold on. Hold on 1 second. I probably am freezing. Hold on. Hold on. It should clear up soon. Hold on, y'all. Come on, car. Okay. I may go through another rough area. Uh, I have been so busy, where I don't know if y'all have ever experienced being so busy where you don't have like an appetite. Like that has been me. Hey, Miss Salad. So I really have not really been eating. Like it literally takes God telling me like to eat. He was telling me earlier, that I need to eat, but I wasn't hungry. And all of a sudden, I started to get that hunger headache. So I said, okay, God, I'm going to get me something to eat. And so, that is where I am on the way to now. Our declaration is just do what God said do. That's it. Just do what God said do. That's it. Don't sit there and ponder about it. Don't sit there and try to figure out the why. Just do what God said do. A lot of our anxiety stem from like us not just doing what God said do. A lot of our anxieties and the pressure that we feel from like the things that God is asking us to do, a lot of it like comes from like our own questions. It comes from us trying to figure out things or waiting on all the pieces of the puzzle. Like think about it. A lot of the anxiety that we feel, a lot of the times where we delay something, is because we are thinking too much about why God has told us to do what he's told us to do. Give me a one if that makes sense. A lot of times that is really why. Like as I got home this morning, I knew that God was telling me, because really what I wanted to do, I'm going to eat hibachi today. Because it's healthy and that's what I really have a taste for. And it's on my diet: rice, vegetables, and meat. And so that's the only thing that I could think of that I can actually stomach right now. Sometimes you get so hungry where you don't be hungry, but nevertheless, but I knew that they open at 11. So my mindset was, God, I could just wait here at this place for like, 40 minutes until they open and just let that be it. Right. And so as that was my mindset, the Lord told me straight up, go home and do what I asked you to do. And I know that in that moment, what God was telling me that I needed to get done was what I was afraid of doing, from the get-go, because of my own questioning behind why God was wanting me to do it. I knew that he was saying, go home and send them your intent to vacate notice. Like, go home, scan it, and email it back, and email it back to them so that there are no issues. And so that was what I did. And I'm gonna just tell you guys something. Like, when I just literally just did what God asked me to do without allowing my mind to wonder, without trying to figure out the future, without any questions, I really, noticed that there was a peace that came. And I don't know who needs this that God has asked you to do in this season. I'm not freezing, am I? In this hour. And God is saying, just do what I asked you to do. Don't think about it. Don't try to figure it out. Don't get worked up on the details. Don't go into thinking about how you can make it happen in your own strength. Just literally do what I asked you to do. There are some things, Stephanie Palmer, that God has been asking you to do. He says you have been doing it, but it's been a lot of thinking as you're doing it, a lot of just thinking. And the thing about it is, living a life with God takes the guesswork out of life. Ooh. Living life with God letting him lead. It takes the guesswork out of life, meaning we don't have to wonder about how a situation is going to turn out. We don't have to sit and wonder about certain scenarios, because when we really believe that God has our best interests like at heart, we understand that the outcome to every single thing that we go through, every single thing that we are told to do, the outcome is victory. The outcome is something that works out for our good. Come on, some of y'all literally need to remind yourself of that. If God is leading me and telling me to do something, it's because doing this thing is going to work something out for my good. If God is telling me to go down a certain path, it's only because it's gonna work out for my good. If God is telling me to let go of some things, come on, it's only because letting go of this thing, come on, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good for me. It's gonna work out for my good. If God is telling me to make certain connections in this hour, if he's telling me to create certain things in this hour, it's because doing what God has told me to do ensures that every single thing in life will work out for my good. I don't know who needed this reminder, but God doesn't need you to do the guesswork. Whew. God doesn't need you to do guesswork. That is the beauty of having him. It's the beauty of serving him. And what you're going to notice, Stephanie Palmer, is that as you just do what God told you to do, because the cycle has been, God says you need to know that the cycle has been, God tells you to reach out to certain businesses, right? And the cycle becomes you think about doing it in your own strength. And so that's where you begin to freak out. You begin different concerns, different fears begin to come to the surface. But as you simply just do what he asked you to do, call and say, hey, are you guys interested? The Lord says what you will feel is less pressure, not as much pressure. What you will feel is peace. I was wondering why God had me lingering on sending, my intent to vacate notice. Right? The thing that I noticed is I was like, why haven't you told me to do it the day that I printed it, the day that they sent it? But as I did it today, I realized that the reason I had not done it in the past is because I listen, my thoughts were all on that thing. I was concerned. I was worried. The subconscious fears that I didn't know I had were beginning to listen. They were surfacing. And so God waited until I got to a point where I was intentional about keeping my focus on him, where I was intentional about my obedience, where I was intentional in my faith. He waited until I got to that point to give me the instructions to do it. That to say, am I freezing? Am I freezing? Am I freezing? Somebody tried to call me and then music started playing. Am I freezing? Okay. So there are some moments where God knows that we're human. He knows that we battle things. He knows that sometimes we wrestle with our own thoughts, our own fears, our own insecurities. So there are some moments in life where God, you'll know what to do, but because there's so much fear present and not any faith or not enough faith, God will wait until we course correct and get to a place where there is way more faith than there is fear. Because one thing about it is, where there's faith, fear cannot dwell. Think about it. In whatever area your faith is the strongest, have you noticed that right? I'm gonna say it again. Like everyone, I believe that everyone has varying degrees of faith based on the situation, based on the circumstance, right? So I'm saying that to say there are some moments in your life where you can have way more faith, and then there are other areas where your faith, listen, it be rocky. It's rocky as a rocky road. It's rocky, right? And so what you'll notice is that in the areas where your faith is the strongest, you really don't really deal, right, Stephanie? You really don't really deal with an intense amount of fear creeping up when God requires something of you. But in other areas where fear is more prevalent than your ability to trust God and have faith, what you will notice is that in those moments, in those areas rather, you know, you get attacked the most. Your mind roams the most, right? And it's simply because your faith is not, your faith is being overpowered by fear. And so every single process in every single area works to get us to a place where we are operating from the realm of more faith and little to no fear. It's why sometimes our processes are the way that they are. I pray that I'm making sense. I pray that I'm making sense. Hold on one second, you guys. Oh, I'm all type of crooked guy, but that's all right. Okay. Hold on, y'all. I'm trying to park. I got here a little bit early, but God knows I'm starving today. I'm not gonna give him no lip on eating because I've been telling God, I'm not hungry. I don't want to eat anything. I'm good. I've been telling God that, Lord, I'm good. I don't want nothing to eat. I'm not hungry. I don't want that. I ain't going back and forth today. That headache started kicking in. I said, God, I hear you. It's time to eat. I'm gonna eat today. You right. You right. But that was like the revelation that like God gave me and to faith. He didn't wait for me to get over fear and focus on fear, because what you focus on is what will grow. No, he waited for me to consciously choose faith. He waited for me. He didn't wait for me to deal with the fear. He waited for me to choose faith, because the fear is always going to be there. But he waited for me to get to a point where I remembered who he is. I'm like, God, you've moved me at every single junction. You done had me pack up this entire apartment just about. Like, it's no way that I'm not about to find what you have for me. It's no way. Right. Right. And that's the thing about it. Fear is always going to be present. It's always going to be there. And so God waits until we get to the point where we're ready and willing to choose faith over that fear. It's a choice what we choose. Like, it's a choice to operate in fear. It's a choice to focus on what you're afraid of. And honestly, if you think about it, the more and more you focus on what you're afraid of, you don't get over that fear. You become more afraid. It's just like a person that is afraid of heights, right? Them folk, and let's just say they're going on a hike up a mountain. Them focusing on that fear is not going to alleviate the fear of heights. It is going to heighten it to the point where they may get to a certain point or a certain peak on that mountain, and they may absolutely freeze. They may like have a whole panic attack. They get more afraid. But the thing about it is the same thing happens when we choose faith. The more you feed that faith, the more it grows. The more you feed it, the more it grows. And I gotta say, like, had I not like started packing already, I wouldn't have even been at the place to like believe to the point of, saying, okay, God, I'm choosing faith to go ahead and send my 2 months notice, letting this complex know this is the end of my time here. I'm done. Right? I would not have had the ability to choose the faith, because fear would have been talking louder. So it's like, if you focus on who God is, who his word says he is, what he's done for you, you'll find yourself being more willing, more willing, more willing, more willing to trust him with what you're dealing with right now. And that was the revelation that God gave me. He told me, he said, I waited on you to choose faith and not fear. I waited for you to make the choice. That's why I didn't want you to do it in fear. Even though I knew God wanted me to send them that, he literally was telling me it's not time. And I couldn't figure out why it ain't time. God, why it ain't time? It wasn't, I was the issue. The spirit that I was rooted in, that I was wanting to move in, was fear. And God knew that in order for you to see results, you need to do this with the assurance that I got you, with the assurance that I'm going to do what I told you I was going to do. There is a such thing as knowing what God wants you to do, but doing it out of fear versus, you knowing what God wants you to do and doing it out of faith. Just the assurance that whatever it is that you don't yet see will become something that you eventually see. So the question becomes like, have you been obeying God with a spirit of fear, or has it been pure faith? And the way that you tell like what you're moving in, if you're moving in fear or faith, is faith produces more of the fruit of the spirit. So if you're operating in the realm of like faith, you have peace, you have joy, right? There's just a knowing that things are going to be all right, versus when you're moving in fear, you are anxious, you are all over the place, you are overthinking. Come on. You're thinking about worst case scenarios. And so a lot of times, sometimes we'll do things with fear in mind, and we get mad when we don't see the results. And sometimes it's not that we didn't do what God wanted us to do. The issue is that we didn't do it with belief. We didn't do it with expectation of God performing on our behalf. I pray that I'm making sense. So when it's all said and done, what God is saying is, I'm not just looking at obedience. I'm looking at the root of the spirit behind your obedience. Are you doing this with fear in your heart? Or are you doing this with pure faith? Are you sowing because you're afraid that I'm not going to come through? Or are you doing this because, one, you know it's what I told you to do, but are you doing this knowing that I'm going to take care of you? What spirit is it rooted in? Right? And so sometimes we can be obeying God, but not be doing it from a place of faith, but instead we'll be obeying God with fear in our hearts. Fear. And so we won't see results. And the reason why we don't see results is that God can't bless an unstable person. Fear makes you double-minded, right? When you're overthinking, what is that? You being double-minded. You ain't sure if God is going to do it if he ain't. When you're focusing on those fears, what does it do? It's making you double-minded. A double-minded man, it makes you feel unstable. A double-minded man is, unstable. He's not solid. A double-minded man is cursed by God. And so sometimes we can do things and we're doing it and we got a whole bunch of fear while we're doing it and we don't see the results. But the Bible tells us we won't see results when we're double-minded. And so it makes sense why God waited, why he waits for us to choose faith. He waits for us to choose faith. Some of you guys in the coming days, you got decisions to make. Some of y'all in the coming days, you literally have decisions to make. But make these decisions, right? Follow God's instructions with the full belief that he's going to come through for you. And so that is it, y'all. I love y'all. I am rooting for you guys. To those of you guys that feel led to sow, you can. The seed title is just have faith or have hope. That's what I hear. The seed title is have hope. Attach hope to your obedience. And so that is it. You sow whatever you feel led to sow. If you don't feel led to sow, it's perfectly fine. Glean from this. Glean from it. God may even be testing some of you guys even in sowing. And I'm not saying that because it's never about money. But he may be testing you like, are you going to sow with no fear this time? Are you going to do it with no fear? Or are you going to do it? Are you going to do it with faith, or are you going to do it with fear? And so that is it. Those are the ways to sow. For those of you guys that need prayer for anything, prayer.thoughtsbyt@gmail.com is the way to send those prayer requests. I love y'all. I am rooting for you. And so until next time, y'all.